Welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and on this stream we work on a Django app, particularly a homeschool app that I'm building and have been building for a better part of 2 years now, I guess. And we're going to continue on that app and build more on the PDF bundle feature that I've been working on the last couple streams. We're going to work on a third PDF. I'm starting to get a flow down, so I'm hoping these go a little faster. And then if we have more time, we'll probably poke around with maybe some other optional topic that I have in mind. I've got something bouncing around in my head. We'll see if we actually get to it, though. Before we start, I want to say thanks to my patrons on Patreon. So if you want to support me, you're welcome to do so as well. You can go to patreon.com/mblehman. And I want to say thanks to Rupert, Andrew, Dragos, Ryan, Patrick, Eric, Fred, Aaron, Philip, Shivan, and Monty. Thank you all for your support. Appreciate it. It helps keep me motivated to keep working on this. All right, let's get into the actual project. So we've got some code to get back on top of, and that's not the project. We're over here. And where are we? So I was last stream working on a PDF and got the new PDF into the bundle. I'm building an end of school year bundle that my users in the homeschool application I'm building can actually use and have for their records, whether to prove to their government or whatever record-keeping purpose they have for it. It was a request by some customers, so I'm building that out. And our job in this stream is to continue to do that building and actually put the next PDF in there. So first thing we're going to do is fire up the application and take a look at things and see how we're doing so far. We've got the app. And here it is. And we're going to need a couple of tabs. So let's open the reports, and then we can go to, well, that's probably actually a good enough start for now. So this is the reports page that we're going to be at. And we're going to work on this. The data that we have, the dummy data that we have, is for 2021 and 2022. So I want to go ahead and pick the bundle here. So we've got this page that will create a PDF bundle for us. The report that we're going to work on, we have so far built the resource report, which is a collection of like, what books do you need? What goes into the courses that somebody has for a year to kind of show what their curriculum is. And then the progress report is what you would expect. It's essentially a report card, and it shows all of the grades that a student has done. This time, though, our attention is going to be on this attendance report. The attendance report is something that a lot of homeschool states require to track that your student in your home is actually regularly attending school. And so our test data is really junky. So there's going to be tons of absences and stuff. Keep in mind, this is meant for the end of the school year, and this is the test school year that we're using is right in the middle of it. So it's not going to look great when we actually get the thing working, when we test it out. But the point is not to look great with the dummy data. The point is to look good with the actual data on the other side when a user has actually completed their school year. So this is kind of what we're going for. We should be able to recreate this with a PDF. And we need to put up the scaffolding to make that possible to test that out quickly, and then actually add the new functions that make that actually produce the PDF report, hook into a new view to check that, and then hook that into the bundle overall. I'm hoping that since we did this last time with the one of the other reports, that we'll actually be able to knock this out a little quicker, because we already did a little bit of refactoring to make some of the components reusable. There was some work done for the first PDF, and then to do the second PDF, I saw some stuff that was like common, and I got those common parts out, and so now we have those as building blocks that we can apply for other stuff. Okay, that's all kind of vague until we look at the code, so let's look at the code. I am somewhere else. I was working on, I don't even know what I was working on, so I'm not really sure where we're at with this these files, but we'll get there. And I'm noticing this is actually a little short for some reason. Let's give you all an extra, hey, one more row to see. Okay, where do we need to go? We need to start with the ability to test this out. And when we're doing the testing, we can go to this like dashboard that I've got that's only an administrative feature. So only I would see this as the logged in user on the real site. And I can go to my PDF dashboard tool, and you can see we've got these ability to check out these 2 existing tools, and we're now ready to add our 3rd block. So the first place I want to go is to the PDF's dashboard, which is that page you're just seeing, and take this block right on the top and drop it right here and call this the attendance report. Is it dance? Oh, I never know how to spell this word. It's really bad. Dance. Okay, attend dance report. This doesn't have a URL yet, so we're just going to lean on the progress report for the moment. And we need to fill this in. It's the same exact structure as the other reports in that it takes an enrollment ID. That's the ID that's up here in the URL. The enrollment ID is the connection between what student do we need the information for and what grade level are they in for this year. And so by having this enrollment ID, it's enough to like look up the report for a particular school year. So we can find Mark Lehman in 3rd grade in 2020 and 2021. This is all just sample data. This is not my actual son's data, but I did use his name because it's an easy name for me to think of and pick a real student kind of scenario. So let's go to the PDF URLs. What did I call that? It's in the reports app. So we've got the reports, and we probably have office URLs. That's what I called it. So in here, we have the dashboard, which is what you can currently see, and then we have the progress report and the resource report, and so we need to add another one for attendance. So we've got, this will be the attendance report. And I should add, if you have anything that you want to ask, please do. This isn't meant to be just about my homeschool application. It's meant to be about teaching people how to use Django. So if you see something that you don't recognize, maybe you're new to Django and you want to ask about it, you're welcome to pause me, and I will happily stop and try to explain what I can. Or if you have questions that are, at least keep them relevant to web development if you can. But if you have other questions that are about web development, I'll try and handle those too. It's not purely about Django necessarily, but I'll try and field as much as I can. So we're going to connect the URL over here. So now we have our attendance URL to check. We have that routed here. My editor is telling me, hey, you don't have this view yet, so that's expected. But we can go define that by switching over to the views file. And let's steal from another one of these existing views so that we don't have to copy the whole world here. We're going to take this, we're going to search for the attendance report view and put it right above. That's what I've been doing with the other ones. We'll rename this to the attendance report. And now we've got our view. Jumping over, Ronco, hi, welcome. Ask any questions as you've got them. Just working on some PDF features right now. Okay, we need to go where? We need to go to the reports test views file. That's the next thing. And I need to have this test case to prove to myself that no user outside of a staff user can access this page. That's important. I always add a test case in order to get at least the access control checks and give me confidence in that. So this is not the resource report. This is the attendance report that we're going to modify here. And we can switch resource to attendance and do the same thing down here. Now, because we've just used a view here from somewhere else, this test case actually should work. Ronco, do I prefer using generic views? Well, as you can see here, this is a function-based view. So I've got mixed feelings about generic views. I have used them in plenty of circumstances in this app. I mean, you can see one right below here. Like here's a template view with a class-based style with the login required mix-in. I've used form views. I've used a bunch of them. I've even thought about switching and using Django vanilla views, I think it's called. And for the most part, I don't have a problem with the generic views. I think it takes a little bit of time to get your head wrapped around all the hooks that you need to remember, all the functions. And so for this particular scenario, where it's something that is just a view that is being used only for me as an administrator of the site, making just enough of a tool here, I don't need anything, any extra fancy checking that might come from a generic view. So you won't see that necessarily here, but most of the time, I would say I like using generic views. Good question. Now let's try running this page, see if we've got everything hooked up correctly. Those tests should pass, I would expect. They do. So now we can go over back to the dashboard that we have, refresh the page, and we'll get our new URL. And right now, if I was to provide, let's try it. We need this ID, which is, again, the enrollment ID. And if I do this and click this button, it's going to generate a resource report, I think, because that's what I copied it from. But it should generate something. And there it is, the resource report. So now it's time to mold this into the actual PDF that we care about and all of the data for that. Okay, where do we go from here? The way that I've been doing this for these reports is that a lot of these views have the same data needs. In fact, you can see here is the context data that is required by this view. And I want this to be as reusable as possible. So the way that I've done this with some of these other reports is I've built a data class, and then I put in all the context in there, and then I can add that, I can use the context both in the testing view that I have and in the bundle view that actually builds the whole thing, and in the HTML version. So I get 3 places out of it by putting that context in there. And the input to these, as you can see from here, has been the enrollment object. So I need to essentially comment out this stuff and create a context, a data class, that takes in these parameters that you can see: grade level, school year, student, school dates, and so on. Also, it looks like we have some extra helper method here that we can pull out of this view and that we'll be able to use in our data class. So that is the next bit that we can work on. We don't need the test case right now, so let's go to reports context where I've defined these data classes. And let's put down the minimal pieces that we think are going to go in there. So let's start a new data class. This will be I'm sticking with the same name, so this is the attendance report context. Very boring name, but effective. And looking at the context that's over here, we've got grade level, student, school year. So it's the same stuff as the progress report at that level. We've got this school dates thing, which is what? It is a list. You can see it here. So we'll have school dates, which I'll just have as a regular old list. And then total days attended, which looks to be an int. All right. So that gives us the class that we are going to use. And now it's time to essentially fill in this class. So the way I've done this, as you can see, is I've got this enrollment from enrollment class method. And I'm going to use that same strategy on the attendance stuff. So we'll take the actual bit at the top here, we'll put it right there, and we're going to change, first we can do a pass right there for the moment, just so that stops freaking out. We're not going to need the course ID on this one. That's not a feature that's part of this particular report, so we can drop that, which shortens that there. And then we can change the return type to be the attendance report context that we expect it to be. All right. So from here, we need to build, as you can see, do this return. Now, we can reuse a lot of this existing return because I put them in the same order. Student, grade level, school year. So what we have to fill in still is school dates and total days attended. Like that. Those aren't defined yet, so we need to fill that part in. All right. On the report side, we'll see how this is done. So you can see it creates a context, and then it calls that like this. So well, actually, let's just copy this for it to be most efficient here. Come up, change this to attendance report context. Do the same here, attendance report context. And it doesn't need that. It needs the attendance report context, which we need to import. So let's go to the top, come down to the context imports, and then say attendance report context. All right, so that's what this should do when this thing is done. Is we'll be updating the context dictionary with everything that's in the attendance report context as a dictionary, which will be all of these things as keys. So you can see where we've got the actual key assignment here, we're effectively going to replace all this stuff by just creating this context object and then calling asDict on it. All right, so we know that we can knock out grade level. That bit's done. The school year is already in that for enrollment from enrollment method. So is the student. What is not done is this build school dates thing. And so we need to move this thing over to our context. So I'm going to take this chunk of code here and cut it out, yank it from Vim over there, and put it here. And now the difference is it needs to be a class method because the from enrollment method is going to be called as a class. So we need to make those match up. Ah, phooey. We need to also, okay, good to know. We need to get the request object as well. So we might have to pass in, or really we need to look at what today is. I think that's what we really need. Get local today. What does that return? Oh, come on. I thought my editor would tell me here. Usually if I camp out enough, it will give me the thing, but I guess I can't figure out what it is. Fine. All right, so we know we need date time. Let's import date time. So that'll take care of the missing import problem. We can get rid of it here. And what else? We don't need the coursework model in here. This is the nice part about these context objects. They're clearing out some of the model usage, which is kind of cool. The views file is getting dumber, which I like. Like, I don't want to put as much logic in there, so it's nice to move that over. We need to pass through. All right, what is it? Time zone, local date. Let's put a type check on this thing. Actually, so let's go back to that file. and make this more useful in the future so I don't ever forget this again. I don't remember what Django's time zone local date is. So we can go figure that out. Let's bring up Django source code. And we can go to, where does time zones come from? My brain is failing me. Utils. So we're in Django. We can go down to the utils module. We can go to time zone and then look for local date. It should return, yeah, that's what I thought. It's going to return a date object. I wasn't 100% confident, but I was pretty confident. So we'll say import date time. And then we'll say what? We'll put in a return type here of datetime.date. Now this is type annotated, so now I know for the future, get local today is always returning a date object. And it helps with, I use the MyPy type checker. And so if I'm ever misusing that for some reason, like I'm thinking it's a date time or something like that, then MyPy can keep me honest. All right, so I still need to get that into this function though. Like this self object is not, self parameter is not there. So what I want to do is I want to say today, which is going to be a date, or I guess I'm importing it as date time. So let's do datetime.date. And then we need to come back down here. So the school dates list is coming directly from that helper method. So we'll do school dates is equal to class build school dates, and it's going to take the enrollment as it currently does as well as today. Now it's going to complain because I currently don't have that parameter on that helper method yet. So it's noticing there's too many arguments. So let's put a type signature on here to say enrollment and today, and that is a date time date, and it's going to return the list. And it's a list of dictionaries, but I don't really care about that specificity. So now that we have this, we can update the calling area and say self.request.user get local today, before I forget about that part. And over here, to get all this through, we can now change all of this stuff to just be today. So we've essentially like punted the problem of where's the date coming from to the caller, which is the right context because the caller in the view has access to the request user, which has access to this get local today method. And it's localized by some schemes here that is why it's on the user. I'm not really going to go into that part right now. It's not necessarily necessary. So that takes care of this. And then we can take this logic that's here and drop this in here and reformat it to be what we want. Oh, what is it doing? Oh, okay. It's just relying on the structure. Okay, got it. So we'll drop the context that surrounds it, put it in a local variable. which fixes the call to class, but then breaks where we have this like unknown context thing. But now we know we have school dates. So if we replace this with school dates, we should be good. So that all looks good to me. It looks like we pulled out everything from the existing view, replaced it with this context thing, and then we have this available to ourselves for the other view that we'll get to in a moment. But I think one thing that we can do to sanity check is we can come back to this attendance report, hit refresh on this page, and it should be the same. Now, that all looks the same. And then it says days attended, 10. I'm sure that's true. I'm not going to go through and count. Well, actually, maybe I could just do a Control F and look for attended. 8? Oh, that's not good. I don't know why that logic is off. That's probably a different bug in a different area. And it's probably somewhere in here is not quite right, but I'm also using test data, so I could be really messing stuff up somehow. And either way, I probably need to correct it, but that's not the goal for the stream this evening. Okay, so we've got the attendance report thing. And we can plop it right here. Whoops. On the attendance report. And we're not going to have self here because it's a function-based view, but we can put request. Now this is going to be me. This is as the user, so it doesn't really matter, but still need a date to go into that, so that's fine. We can drop the name down to just context, and then we can get rid of this context. And then finally, for this particular view, we can change this to be attendance report. That's fine. Now, MyPy is complaining because make resource report. We haven't hooked this up to the real PDF function yet because we haven't created one yet. And so the type checking is noticing, hey, wait a minute, this context is not the same context that it expects. So we need to go to this area where the functions are defined next to actually make this work. We'll come down to PDFs, and you can see here that this is where we refactored last time and pulled out some of the common logic with this make report. So all we have to do in this context is to do copy this like so, and we'll substitute progress for attendance for the whole thing. I think that's pretty close to it. I guess we need to change the import to pull in that context, and then change this to that context. So now the attendance report is expecting this context type. So if we save over here, that error should go away. Oh, I'm still calling the wrong report. Now that error should go away. There we go. And so we have our PDF view. It's going to fail. It's going to fail because this template doesn't exist yet. But we're getting closer. So let's return back to the PDF dashboard, and let's click generate and watch it fail. So it's saying, I don't have this attendance report PDF template. No surprise. So we need to go fill that in. Let's go to the resource report PDF. And here's that. First thing I want to do is create the attendance report PDF. Save that file. And then what we're going to copy from the existing attendance report. The difference, though, is that we don't need a bunch of this stuff. We're not pulling from the generic template or the base template for the whole website. So we don't need to extend from app base. We also probably aren't going to need any static files because we're not going to have the empty case. We're going to assume that there is attendance information. So we're going to delete the else block because we're just going to assume that this is the end of the year. And if somebody happens to create a bundle before they've started their school year, what do they expect if they get something empty? So we'll take this stuff and get rid of it. And then we will take, that's going to get rid of that. And we can outdent the div. So this should be getting us pretty close. And then we can, now that there's no static files anymore, we can get rid of the load static. We can also get rid of the head title. That's the title of the name of the tab. So let's get rid of that. And we don't need a main block, so we can get rid of that and get rid of that. And then we can view the entire stuff and outdent the whole thing. We're getting pretty close. Now, stylistically, I remember there is another change that we have to make. So let's bring up the resource report. And that change had to do with the size of the header. The 2XL did not work very well on the other PDFs. So we're going to drop this to just XL. And that should give us what we want. With any luck, this looks good enough. Remember, that's the whole point of this exercise is to, well, you don't remember, you may not have been here last time. The whole point of this is to make a good enough PDF. This doesn't have to be the most beautiful PDFs. They're meant to be very functional and for data and record keeping purposes. So as long as they look okay, then I think we've accomplished the mission. And we've done it fairly speedily here. I guess we've done the whole thing in about a half an hour or less. So let's check it out. Let's go back to where we were and see how the attendance report looks like now that we have the template in place. It's taking, oh no, what's going on? Whoa, that does not look good. So here's a case where we have some work to do. Well, the other reports came out pretty nice the first time. I was hopeful, but there's something's going on here. The trick with this, though, unfortunately, is that this cycle. This is why we made this admin page, so I can have this cycle of we can go back, we can make some changes, we can hit generate again. Without this tool, we'd have to find some way to trigger this through some other scheme, and this is the fastest way I know that to visually iterate on this. We've got a piece, keep going, hitting go. All right, so what do we care about with this thing? Thinking before I commit too far here. Because what we could do is, this has all of the structure and the data that matches with the actual attendance report. So we want to keep all that. What it's not working with clearly is the actual styling. So I could strip this down to the bare minimum and kind of build it up and see what is causing the failure. That's probably how I'll go. So let's start with, let's see if we can get, did the total, I've already gotten rid of it. Can't remember if the bottom looked okay or not. So let's start by commenting out what's inside the for loop. It'll just be a whole lot of nothing. And see if the footer looks okay. Did we even get the footer right? Okay, this looks fine. There's nothing crazy about it. It's a row. It's half and half. And so it's right in the middle. That makes sense. It's got one side, the text is to the right on the first half. So that's why the total days attended is towards the middle. And then the text is to the left on the second half, which is why the actual number is also towards the middle. The styling looks okay. It's all good. Now I did notice the library has been like spitting out some errors at me. It doesn't like some, so I'm using Tailwind for actually getting the styles from. And Tailwind is taking advantage of some stuff that is in newer versions of CSS, like CSS variables. And the library that I'm using, WheezyPrint, apparently has no idea what CSS variables are. Thankfully, it hasn't been an issue so far because it's mostly just been like color replacement. So it just means that everything is black and white, but that's okay. Okay, let's move on to the next bit. So we have a flex row. It all came out okay. Let's see if we can add a flex row for each school year. And what if we just put in, what will happen if we do this? I'm curious how this will go. We'll go back. We'll hit generate. Noticing that this PDF takes a lot longer too. So what seems to be happening, as far as I can tell, is that it's not giving each row enough space. It's trying to cram them all together. I wonder why. I wonder if it's grouping the whole system because it's a flex here. Like if it's trying to put all of the same things on a single, I'm not being very clear, I apologize, on a single box. Like if it's trying to bind them all together here and they can't all fit in that one bounded region, so they all get crammed together because they don't fit. And since this was too much to be on to share with this one box on that page, it pushed that to the second page. We got this big gigantic box, and then this big box just kind of flows and then stomps on the footer as well. Maybe that's a theory. So let's see if we can. What happens if we comment out the wrapping div and see what happens? See, because now at this point, everything will get its own flex row, and I can't imagine those individual flex rows conflicting with each other. It's going to mess with, it might mess with the other stuff, but it might not. It might actually be simpler. So let's see what happens. That's the weird part about PDFs is like, there's no way for me to dig into that PDF and inspect, why is this wrong? Like if you're on the web, you can, right click, you can inspect, you can poke around with the dev tools, look at the different sizing, see what's actually happening in the calculation logic. But with a PDF, you're just like, I don't know, and I'm going to see what happens. I'm hoping this will be fruitful. Oh, cool. It is. That's a lot of stuff. All right. So it definitely seemed to be a problem with this wrapping thing. So maybe we put some size constraints on each individual row and push the size down to that and let it size itself. because all this is really doing is saying, hey, this is all together as a single column, when really we could do that probably in here. We'll work on that in a second, though. Let's try and make sure we get in the other half and make sure it still looks okay. And then we can get back to that. So I'm going to leave those 2 lines commented out. See if we get the second column in there and it looks decent. And then we'll adjust sizes. Cool. So that all looks good. How does the footer look? Footer looks fine. Not amazing, but not awful. So now what happens if we go down to each of the flex rows? So we've got a flex, like a little row that's not wrapping the whole system, but is for every day in the school year. What if we put these 2 things on it? What's that gonna do? Let's put that here and here and see if that comes out okay. And if not, I mean, the other thing was looking okay. I'm just trying to like polish it a little bit. Ooh, no. That looks terrible. Okay, forget that. So let's delete that. And then we've got this. We can separate the footer row so we can get a clear indicator that this is different. And let's do one final test to see how it looks. Okay. Cool. Started here. Ends. Really? When does this school year go till? Is it just coincidence that it's like the last day of the year, or is it supposed to go longer? I can't remember if it just goes up until the current day. It may. It'd be hilarious if it was just actually the last day of this test year. Nope, it goes till May. Okay. So it's the year-to-date attendance, which makes sense. Okay. So the PDF's working. PDF is sufficient. It's looking okay. It's doing its job. It's functioning as its report. And now I think what we can do is hook it into the actual bundle. But I guess before we do that, let's run the test suite. Make sure we've got coverage on everything that exists so far. I think we do, but it'd be good to confirm. We can commit this as a checkpoint because it's a good working state, and then we can go add the rest of the bundle. Cool. So I think what we're ready to do is commit this. And we'll say add attendance report PDF. This is for number 521, 531. Okay. So let's finish this off. The way to finish this off is to go back to the bundles, the place where all these views are. So that's the reports views. And we want to add bundle. Sorry, I'm having a brain fart because I think I'm wondering if these views are included as in some URLs. Well, hold on a second. Okay, they're separate. Good. I was worried that I was like bundling all of the user-facing views and the administrative views together in a single URLs file, but that's not really what I'm doing. So I was concerned in my head, but that concern is not merited. So if we go down to bundle, and we're at the create bundle. So this is where we will put the attendance report. So what we can do now is we can say attendance report context is equal to the attendance report context from enrollment. We pass in the enrollment and the user get local today. Okay. And then we'll do just like this section here. We can say attendance report, and we'll pass in the attendance report with the attendance report context. That should be the only change that's actually required on the bundle side. And I have a test that runs through all of these bundles, and it should run just fine, with any luck. So we can come back here and we can start up the web server again. Go to our bundle page, and now we'll create a bundle. Now the fear is this bundle creation process getting too long? If there's a certain time limit gets expired, then we're going to get into trouble, because Heroku has a hard timeout on some of these things. Thankfully, I think we're staying under that, and if we only have 4 reports that are ultimately in the report, and I'm kind of telling people this might take a little bit of time, so just hang on, then hopefully we'll stay under that time limit that is concerning. But that'll be something to check on. So now we've got, those are way bigger. They just have so much data in them. Oops. It's funny how much bigger those are. And I guess it makes sense, they're like 11 pages. But when you got to prove to your government that your kid has been attending school, here you go. What better way to prove it than a spreadsheet that does it? Cool. I think that's it. Let's do another sanity check on the coverage, and then we'll move on to some other feature. I had something else in mind that I thought might be fun to try and tackle a little bit. Don't know how it will work out, but might be interesting to try. And I did notice, so I went after the stream last time, and you can see how you can like see the dots moving along, and it's taking some amount of time to get all 100 to 100% on the range of 30 seconds or something as we're sitting here watching this. And I was like, how much is the streaming penalty, I guess, if you will? 45 seconds that took. So I ran this afterwards, after I've off the stream, done encoding video, just to see what the difference would be. And it was something like 12 seconds, 15 seconds. It was a massive difference. Just goes to show how hard computers have to work sometimes. I love when it's that simple to finish off in the end. It's really, I mean, it wraps around a couple times, but it's effectively 2 lines of code to add the actual new report into the bundle. So let's give it another commit and look at something different. So add attendance report to PDF bundle for 531. And we'll push that up. Now we come over to the actual spot over here, and we can do that. Now I'm not going to work on the next report. One report a stream is sufficient. The next report also has more complexity to it. So we have, it's not an existing HTML report that we can just pull from like we could over here. It's a different subset of the site with a different set of context, and we'll probably end up trying to build it the same way of creating a context object that has the data, but we have to fetch that data for the first time. It's going to be kind of new and novel in that regard. And it's not just going to be taken from an enrollment object either. You know what? This has me curious. That was really slow. Before I move on, I want to make sure that that this select related is pulling all the right stuff. Because if it's not, that would explain a lot about why that was slow. So it's getting, for sure, student, grade level, and school year. But what is the attendance report page getting? The attendance report is getting, okay, maybe it's okay. Student, grade level, and school year. I was just trying to think of like what would the query count be, but it doesn't have to query the database for individual days, so maybe that's not a problem. It's just kind of slow. That's just the reality. I could test what the real true performance is if it afterwards to see how many queries is it doing on a real set of data. In fact, I can't fully do that with the debug toolbar because it returns a PDF as the response. It doesn't actually return you to a page. How would I test that? I could do the generation. All right, here's how I would test this later. So this create bundle page is a GET request effectively, and it's getting all of this data here and then looping through all these reports. And then by the time it gets to this point, there's really nothing left to get. I mean, you guess you get the buffer out of the zip file. That's not a expensive operation. So I could effectively copy this or comment this part out, replace it with some other page that gets rendered, put on the debug toolbar to see how many queries are happening. Why don't we try that for a moment just before we move on, because I'm curious as to what this is. So where can we go? Let's go to the core views and like, I don't know. We've got render already. So let's render the help page. Plop that here. And let's go and say core help HTML. The context doesn't matter. None of this stuff matters for this. So all the work has already happened in building the zip file. Okay, now we can come over here and turn on the debug toolbar. just going to fire up and return to the site, go to the create bundle page, and now when we create this page, we're going to be taken to the HTML page, but, or I'm sorry, the help page, rather than get a zip file to download. But it should give us the number of queries that ran too, to see if we're doing something stupid and inefficient. Query bugs or any like loops that are problematic. Well, it should. Where's the... There it is. Just taking its time to pop up here. All right, 21 seconds. That's not good. Only 14 queries though. So I think we're doing well with the queries. We're going to need to keep that going well. We want the rest of this to succeed. There's a bunch of log messages. That was all that Wheezy print stuff that I can't do anything about. I mean, short of turning off, I could set the Wheezy print logging to not be doing that because I'm not going to do anything about it. But it's not that I don't think it's affecting the performance of the app to my knowledge. So maybe that's okay. So I think that's sort of the state of things, is we're still doing okay. All right, that was fun to check. Good sanity check there. Still might do it on the last report too, especially if the last report has more complicated queries that have to happen. But we can get rid of that for now. So what else can we do? I had an idea, just as something to try out, and I'm not sure how well it will go. I don't know if I'll actually commit it, but one thing that my site currently does not have is any kind of caching setup. So you can set up Django to use a cache system, and you would do that in your settings, and there's no cache key in here. And so why would I need a cache? There's plenty of reasons why you would use a cache, but think about this. Currently, right now, my site, actually you can just go to the real site. The website is at theSchoolDesk.app, and when it rendered that page was rendered completely by Django. It had to go through all of the Python code. It had to put this whole page together and produce this response. And the question is, can I cache some of that so it doesn't have to do that multiple times? Now I'm starting to wonder though, because I've got things in here that cannot be cached. Like, think about this. If I'm the one to visit this page, and I come to the School Desk app, you can see I'm logged in here, and this is actually my account, so it's got the stuff showing I'm logged in as the administrator. And it's showing me extra features, this office and dashboard. These are URLs that if someone else was logged in and was able to click these, it would at least give them a permission error. They can't go there, but they'd have these things that they shouldn't have, that they would make them wonder, why is this here? So we can't just cache the whole page, but it would be possible to cache all of this stuff, because when I'm going to the index page, it's still a template view. It's still coming through here, and it's as simple of a template view as possible. There's no context being passed to it, but it still has to go through the template engine and go to this index and go to each of these blocks and include all of this stuff for the benefit of rendering an output page. And perhaps what a cache would do is it would allow me to have that homepage be, or at least parts of it, be more reactive to traffic. So let's say for some reason, homeschoolers around the world found the School Desk app and started slamming it with traffic. This is really not a realistic scenario, but this is kind of just something we're talking about for fun. And so that you can think about, if you were building an app, what would you do? In that scenario, we could maybe cache a bunch of this stuff. Although now that I'm thinking about that, no, this is not going to be good for this page. I'm not sure it's going to be good for any page, to be honest. Why? I could put a cache block in here. So Django has a template tag called cache that you can wrap around anything that goes in your template. And that thing can be cached in a cache. I don't know how else to say that. And essentially stored in a place where it can be quickly retrieved. But this is already that place. Like there's nothing dynamic in this index page. So it would be kind of a waste to try and cache this result. It wouldn't help. And because there's still the dynamic header that cannot be cached, it still has to go through the Django rendering engine and process that way. So maybe this isn't an idea worth pursuing right now, and it would need other ways to think about this. Trying to think if there's a use case on the site that would matter. I was hoping to show off some kind of caching just for fun and get it integrated into the app for some benefit, but it may, always think of it like this is a real app. This is not just, I have paying customers and people that depend on this, so I can't just fully play with it and do whatever I want. I have to actually think through things. So is this actually going to be helpful? Trying to think of a scenario where it could be. So where else can you deal with caching? Let's like think through that part, because there are plenty of areas that are expensive to calculate. So we've already got the server. Well, I guess I turned off the debug mode. Let's turn debug mode back on, and let's inspect this a little bit. So that's running. If we do that and then go back to the app. Nope, this is the real website, so that's not going to help. I was wondering why am I seeing just dummy data? So we're just going to go to the main page, which is in this particular app, because there's only a couple of courses, not super expensive. But you can see, even with just this amount of data, it's doing 25 queries. And there's some unoptimized stuff in here that I never had fully time to resolve. So I know that this page gets more expensive for each course that's in here. There is an N+1 query bug that I haven't dealt with. It's tolerable, so I haven't tried to optimize it completely out of the way. So in theory, we could take this whole table of dates and cache it for some amount of time. But one of the hard problems with dealing with caching is that how long is the cache valid is the question you have to ask. And there are things that can change this table. A lot of things, in fact. Let's imagine that we are sitting here at 11:59 local time, and it's telling me it's Wednesday right now, but then a couple minutes later I refresh the page and now it's Thursday. Well, there's a situation where if I cache this whole table and put it in like this, then it's going to appear to be Wednesday when that's not really what's happening. So that's a spot where I would need to invalidate the cache and regenerate it. So that's something to consider. Also, anytime one of these tasks is completed, then it gets marked as a different style. It gets kind of grayed out. And that is a state that can change and invalidate the time new tasks are added. So if any new task is added, then the entire row is invalidated, which could, I could get down to a row level of caching, or I could do it at the entire table. So my point is that while this page is slow, there's a lot of conditions in here that could cause cached chunks of it to become invalid. And that is a bunch of maintenance work. So imagine that I had tons of users on the application. In that scenario, there might be real justification for expending the effort to go in here and add caching to certain parts of this, so that if I found by analysis that people were spending most of their time being stuck waiting for the dashboard to load, then I could get a real benefit out of there. I don't have any reason to believe that, though. There's no actual catalyst for me wanting to add caching. I was hoping to just kind of illustrate it for a simple purpose, but I don't want to go deep into this. So I think what that's leading me to conclude is that right now, there's still not a reasonable use case for me to add caching to the app. And so I'm not going to go into those details. What I was going to possibly show, if there was a case for caching, is how to do a local memory cache that you could just use a very basic in-memory data structure and cache things that way. And that way, like if you stop the process and restarted it, it would clear that stuff out. And so you could do local development and get the benefit of seeing how caching would behave, and how you could even test it in the debug toolbar and see all that stuff happen. And then show how to configure that for an actual production environment. Because with Heroku, you can't just, well, you shouldn't probably just rely on local memory. I guess it would work okay for a little bit, but it wouldn't be the most efficient thing, because you can have Heroku has multiple web workers that can happen, so they'd each have their own cache, and so it would be really uneven on whether the cache is being used or not. So you'd have to set up a caching system. So you might want to use something like Redis in order to make Heroku kind of have this globally available cache. So I thought about going through all of those kind of steps, but I'm pretty sure I'm getting to the conclusion that that's just not going to be worth it. So I think that means that I'm going to end the stream on the early side tonight. We did a new addition to that PDF bundle, and next time we'll work on the last PDF that goes into the bundle. It'll be a slightly different process. A bunch of it will be the same kind of context of testing it out and putting it something that we can render and see, but the actual creation of the report is the new part this time that we'll have to think through and think of the structure for. Once that's done, I think we're ready to move on to some other features. I've been spending a bunch of streams on this because I only want to do one thing at a time. I don't want to stretch myself out. I also want to have something that I can deliver to customers periodically, and I want them to actually have a feature that they can be excited about using when their school year ends. But you can see that, stuff is still happening. Things are piling up. Some of these are new issues, things that I've discovered from other scenarios. So we have plenty that we can work on after this PDF bundle is done. So I'm going to call it a night there. You're welcome to check out this stuff on YouTube later. I take these, all of these live streams, and then make them available as just something you can view on the channel. You can go back and view anything else that we've previously discussed. We think we started the homeschool project back in stream 60 something. So if you want to see it from the beginning and see how far it's come, you can go do that. I want to say thank you for joining in tonight, and hopefully you learned something, and I'll see you next time. Take care.